Hello everyone and welcome back to the project Our Worlds. Today I'm gonna finish the modeling and the details of the LaunchPad. Okay, and for that I'm gonna use exactly the same techniques I've used for the spaceship. So I'm starting with creating a new grease pencil object. Okay, and then I'm just gonna draw on my 3D model all the details I wanna add to it. Again, I'm gonna speed up a few parts of the process because you've already seen me doing it quite a few times. And so this is me designing my LaunchPad interior. You can see it briefly. Okay, using a grease pencil, adding a lot of details on the floor and on the wall where the spaceship is gonna be standing. Okay, now you can see me actually doing the 3D work. This is supposed to be a hole, so I'm gonna use an object as a boolean on the ground to do that. Okay, so now it's done. I'm just adding now some railing for the spaceship. I assume the spaceship was brought here like on a kind of platform, so you would need rails to make it move from one place to another. Okay. Then after that, what I did was some kind of rails for the doors because there will be closing during the animation. Okay. So I'm using a technique you've already seen me doing, using a profile with an array modifier on a curve, and this is giving me the shape I want for these rails. Okay, I'm cutting through it so that the rails from the platform is not interrupted by this circle. Okay, and then I'm adding some elements that I thought would be interesting. There are some kind of arrow shape that are pointing toward the spaceship. Okay, so this is it. Okay, and now I'm just adding another object for the walls because this section is open and it shouldn't be. Okay, with again an object as a boolean to carve a space for the doors. Okay, so next it is time to create details for the doors. It's not a lot of it, just a few cuts here and there and a little extrude. Okay. Now I'm just adding railings here using the wireframe modifier, okay, on the box, which was the one that was cutting the hole. Okay, a copy of it. Now I added some kind of elements on the side. Okay, I'm creating a hole again using a boolean, and then I'm creating some objects to go in there. Okay. Next is something that is supposed to hold the ship in place. Okay, as if it was on a ramp. Okay. And lastly, these are some objects that are supposed to hold the ship in place before it's taking off. I'm modeling the rough shape so that it just fits the space. Then I'm just going into isolation mode or local mode just to work on this with just this object. So I'm duplicating it and have half of it being used as a grid using the wireframe modifier again, and then I'm adding some curves to create some kind of wires inside it. Okay, now I'm duplicating it on the other side, and I think we're kinda done with the modeling of the LaunchPad. Okay, next what I thought about, because going from the normal straight on position and the one towards the camera was not very convenient using the same object, what I have done is what we call a collection duplicate. Okay, this means that I could have a copy of a collection that was used then to be rotated toward the camera, so that this I wouldn't have to modify or touch again. I'm kinda using the same principle I used for the spaceship, but this time, instead of having just two objects being linked duplicate, I have an entire collection which is duplicated and linked as well, which is easier to work with if you have that many objects. Okay, so this is what I've done. Remember that the center of the scene will be the origin point of your duplicated object. So I had to place all the elements from my new collection right at the center of the scene and exactly where the parent empty was before. Okay? Keep that in mind, because if you're doing a collection duplicate, you will have this kind of offset if your original collection is offset from the center of the scene. Okay, so after I've done that for the LaunchPad, I did it as well for the pilot, because it wasn't part of the same collection. So it took a bit of time, but it's okay. It wasn't that complicated. I added again the lights that were in the cockpit to it. Okay. And I'm also arranging all the other lights from the scene. And I'm adding spotlights from the left. That will be like some kind of a warning saying the doors are closing and the spaceship is about to take off. Okay? So I've also added just a cube on the top of my LaunchPad so that I could block out a bit of the sunlight. Next was the part where I needed to add materials. So I did exactly the same as with the spaceship. I created 3 materials, one for the big shapes, one for the medium ones, and the last one for the small shapes that I have assigned to the correct objects or elements. Okay. And now we can see the scene is looking like that. Okay. One mistake I did was to assign the same materials to the spaceship, so now you can see it's exactly the same, which is not very great, so I'm changing it on the spaceship right now. And what I'm gonna do is add a bit of details to its materials, meaning I'm creating like a noise and a Musgrave texture that I'm mixing together, and those are gonna be a mask for 2 values that are gonna be used for my roughness. So you could see slightly in the material a bit of variations that will add more interest to the material, because otherwise it would be just flat like it was before. Okay, so to this, what I added then was I started to do a new mask for some scratches, but I ended up not using it. And what I did was to create a set of nodes to have what we called an edge mask. Okay, here you can see all the edges of my spaceships are appearing in white. So this is my mask. So I'm gonna mix it with another noise texture to have some kind of scratches on top of it. Okay. This I have used to add another color to the spaceship, meaning that if it's on the edge, there is a possibility, a high possibility for it to be a bit damaged, like by the wind or when it's entering the atmosphere. So that's why I added this. Okay, and I just changed the color based on that. I could have changed much more things, but I wanted this to be kept simple. Okay, and lastly, what I did was to also add an ambient occlusion node. Okay, that will just use the ambient occlusion. You can see it here, it's darkening. Okay, it's where 2 surfaces are close to another. This as well I have used to add a bit of dirt color to my model. Okay, and lastly, I also added a gradient from the front to the bottom of the ship to just have the front colors a bit lighter than the back ones. Okay, so I've used the same nodes for all the other materials, and I also added a bevel node in the normal input just to have a slight bevel added to my model. Okay, so I used exactly the same nodes and the same principles for the LaunchPad. Okay, having some texture that would be the source of a mix for two values for the roughness, and after I just change a bit of the colors. Okay, this is what I get. I did like a quick render to just have an overview of what it is looking like exactly. Remember, if you're in material preview, it's not showing exactly how the render is gonna be at the end, because it's using mostly the EV engine for that. Okay, and once you go back to the rendered view in cycles, some things might be a bit different, like in the reflections and the lighting. Okay, and after another render, this is the final image. Okay, it's what we call a raw render, so it hasn't been through compositing or anything like that. So this is what we are gonna do next time. I'm gonna add a few particle systems and effects, like of course the smokes coming out from the spaceship which is taking off, and of course maybe the animation with the lights on the left and the doors closing. Okay, so I hope this was useful. I went a bit fast on everything, I'm sorry, but you know every step that I used, and if that's not the case, don't hesitate to ask me in the comments or to watch the tutorials I made for the projects, the Alchemist Workshop, where I go a bit more in details over the materials. Okay, so I wish you a great week, a great life, as usual, and I'll see you next time. Bye.